Well, for most EFL fans, it is time for one of the most exciting weekends in the year, as over the next 3 days, we are going to be previewing a massive bank holiday weekend. It is, of course, the EFL Playoff Finals, the Championship, League One and League Two, with 6 teams battling it out for 3 promotion spaces, with 3 of them left to go home very disappointed. We're going to start today with the Championship Playoff Final, which takes place on Saturday at 3 due to the brilliant Every Minute Matters campaign. You can find a link to the tool up in the eye above to learn CPR. But for us today, the job, as always, is to preview the massive match, one of the richest games in football, a chance at Premier League promotion, and hopefully for the winner, a chance to compete a bit more for survival in the Premier League than the 6 teams that have gone up the last 2 years. As always, we'll encourage you to get your score prediction down in the comments below, and I'm going to have to ask you to be precise this time. You need to give us details of the score, and if you're going for extra time or penalties, we need the score after extra time and who's going to win on pens as well. If you beat or match my overall score, you won't get a shout out this time because it is the end of the season, but you will get bragging rights and, of course, a response and a well done in the comments. But on that note, before we go and have a look ahead at the final, very quickly, let's have a quick recap of our semi-final second leg predictions and see what we all went for, because, of course, I went for a 2-0 victory for Sheffield United. They managed to get one more, making it a 6-0 aggregate win, so just 1 point for me there. And Sunderland did not make easy work of the Coventry game. They conceded first, which was always going to make things a bit trickier, before Dan Ballard became the hero in the 122nd minute. So no points for me there, but let's have a look at the comment section. I'm going to have to vary it a little to usual because of the extra time and all of that. So on 1 point level with me, just for one correct prediction, was Steve, Marco, Ojo and Nigel. A shout out to Cameron, who got both outcomes right in 90 minutes, 2 points for you. Then the rest of you, so Etienne, Chris and Mello, all got 1, but you did predict Sunderland to draw 1-1, which they did after extra time. So while you didn't get the result in 90 minutes, you got there eventually, so well done to the 3 of you. Peter, also in a similar boat, didn't get any correct outcomes, but had Sunderland to draw 1-1, which of course happened after extra time, so well done to you for that one. And then top of the tree, Bobby gets 3 points, technically, because you predicted Coventry to win 1-0 in 90 minutes, which they did. Unfortunately, you then said they were going to win on pens, which, of course, they were 1 minute away from making, and now we'll never ever know. So well done to everyone for taking part. Thank you for your consistent support and getting involved with the fun throughout the season. But for now, we've got to look ahead to the massive Wembley match. 2 northern sides making the long trip down to the capital as Sheffield United face Sunderland in the Championship Playoff Final to end the 24-25 season. Now, this is not going to be an easy one to call because, if we're being honest, for the most part this season, these 2 teams have been very similarly matched. There's obviously the key in the table being a 14-point difference between them, but it doesn't really tell the full story. For the most part, Sheffield United and Sunderland were right in that race with Leeds and Burnley. The only difference is that Sunderland had their awful week in March where they lost complete chance of getting into the top 2, where Sheffield United didn't have theirs till the 3rd from last week of the season. So as a result, the last 4 or 5 weeks, Regis Lebris was sort of rotating the squad in a regular season, almost sacrificing results. And because of that, they dropped away and their points total was nowhere near. I think if they'd been going full throttle for the whole season, you'd have probably seen them in the 80s without doubt for points. So it's very hard to judge if the difference is actually 14 points between these sides, because for the most part, they've been very even this season. Now, when you go and look at their head-to-head records over the year, it doesn't tell us anything because both of them played in the winter period, so it doesn't really give us a recent fixture to go on. And both of them narrow victories for the home side. Sheffield United winning 1-0 at home in November, Sunderland winning 2-1 at home on New Year's Day. So again, doesn't really separate the sides much. And even if you go over their recent history when they've played each other in the Championship, they've all generally been fairly tight games. So what we've got to try and base this on is the semi-finals in a Championship playoffs and the recent performances, because as we mentioned, we can't even judge it on the end of regular season form because Sunderland were playing, well, rotated sides in a completely different way and seemed to just flick the switch when they went to Coventry in the first leg of the semis. But while the opposition they played was very different, Coventry came in as an informed side and played pretty well for the most part. Bristol City really fell apart against Sheffield United, and it's hard to tell whether that was just the red card, the timing of it. Perhaps the enormity of the occasion aside, that have always been mid-table, whereas Coventry had previously been in the playoffs 2 years earlier with a lot of the same players still at the club? Or was it just that Sheffield United were very good, as they have been for most of the season, in being efficient and getting the job done without really looking spectacular? Of course, the first leg was really difficult to judge because Bristol City, while sitting back and trying to hit on the counter before half-time, the red card changed the game, and in the end it became easy for Sheffield United. And Bristol City, if we're being honest, they started well, but again, once they conceded the first, fell away in the second leg. And that is maybe the one thing I will say about both Sheffield United and Sunderland going into this game is maybe perhaps more than the top two, and maybe the reason they didn't get automatically promoted, is that these two sides have got that little vulnerability defensively. Conceded 36 and 44 respectively. Not brilliant records for teams in the playoff places. However, both of them have made a habit of winning games by the odd goal, winning games narrowly and being efficient. So, for example, Sheffield United and Sunderland both not scored bucket loads of goals this season, but so many 1-0 wins, so many 2-0 wins. It's been those efficient, solid performances that have helped them. Now, if we move on to the Sunderland-Coventry game, you have to say it's far less convincing. While the away performance was very good, tactically it was right from Regis Lebris, we can't hide from the fact that the only reason that game was won was because of an awful late back pass by the Coventry defender, Milan Van Ervik. And it's a horrible mistake. You don't want it to happen to anyone at that point. And while tactically it was a brilliant performance, on another day it would have been a 1-1 draw. And at home, I think it's fair to say, and I think even the Sunderland fans will admit it, it wasn't the most convincing display. To be honest, it looked like two teams who were filled with a bit of desperation towards the end. A lot of half chances, a lot of long distance efforts, a lot of set pieces involved in that match. And to be fair, Sunderland stood up to it pretty well and then took advantage from a set piece, which you have to give them big credit for. I remember 2 years ago when they played Luton. Of course, these two teams were the sides Luton beat that year. And Sunderland, they were without centre halves and they ended up just really struggling against Luton's barrage of aerial balls into the box. Again, tactically, they were outdone. But Regis Lebris, if you've got to give credit to him and the recruitment team, the one thing they've really got in this team now is a solid defence. Whether it's Chris Mepham, whether it's Dan Ballard, they've got solid defenders in there. They've got the counter-attacking quality still as well. And at times we did see aspects of all of that, despite it not being a dominant performance or anything over the two games. It was very different, but perhaps having that stronger test will be better for them or beneficial going into the final, because Sheffield United aren't going to roll over like Bristol City. You wouldn't expect so. So I think this is going to be a pretty tough game to call in terms of the result and the outcome, but I don't think it's going to be that hard a game to call in terms of how it plays out, in terms of what styles we see. Because I think in terms of Sunderland, we're going to see a side that try and hit on the counter. They have been generally the poorer away from home of the two this season. And of course, for both of these sides, technically you're going to an away game. Will Sunderland just operate on the counter attack? You would have to expect so with the players they've got. They've not got the quickest centre-halves in the world, so you wouldn't expect them to be defending high against that Sheffield United line. And while Sheffield United have got goals in them, they've not really got that brilliant goal scorer. You've got Campbell, Cannon, Harmer, all got 10 apiece. There's not been someone who's just gone out and got 20, 25 this year. It's not really been the case across the Championship. The same for Sunderland with Isidore the top scorer, but there's not bucket loads of goals across players this year. There's not those stunning number 9s that we've seen in previous years in the Championship. So it does make it hard to call this as a high-scoring game, but I would expect Sheffield United to have a significant amount of the possession, to control the general pattern and tempo of the game. But Sunderland are then going to try and hit on the break. And the question is, can Sheffield United cope with that? Because while they've kept a lot of clean sheets at home this season, not always been as solid on the road. They have had their difficulties and they have had to rely at times on brilliant goalkeeping and some good defensive displays as well. It'll be interesting to see how they set up, whether they go with that sort of midfielder at fullback, whether they end up bringing in a couple of the experienced heads for the game, and what do they go with as their attacking setup? Because, of course, as they've got towards the end of the season, they've opted for Kiefer Moore as that big physical target man, someone who's been there and done it before in terms of Championship promotion. They've got Harmer in midfield, who obviously has that experience of playing in the playoff final for Coventry 2 years ago, was brilliant in that game, and his injury actually changed a lot of it towards the end of the second half. It's going to make this so hard to call. I've genuinely sat here for about 2 hours, and I cannot work out what I'm going to go for here. The simple logic would be to go for a low-scoring game and probably a 1-0 win either way. But I have no idea which way to go for it. Sheffield United have looked very good for the most part this season. You've got to bear in mind, they picked up 92 points. They've averaged 2 points a game over the season. If it weren't for the points deduction, even that poor week might have left them close. Sunderland had a rotten finish to the season, but their performances were so much better in the 2 playoff games, and they got past, in my opinion, stronger and more in-form opposition. Where do I go with this? There's part of me that thinks there's going to be a surprise. And Regis Labrie tactically, when it mattered in the first leg against Coventry, got it right. But Chris Wilder's done a magnificent job at Sheffield United this year. You have to say it. There's so much of me that thinks my logic is telling me 1-0 Sheffield United. I've just got a feeling Sunderland are going to do it. I've got a real hunch about it. And generally, I should trust it. I made the mistake last week in the National League semi-finals. In pre-season, I said Oldham were going to win the playoffs from finishing 5th. I went against them in the semi-finals. They won 3-0 last night as I'm recording this. I'm going to go for Sunderland to win 1-0. Honestly, I don't blame you if you go for a 1-0 either way. If you go for a narrow victory either way, I think it's perfectly logical and justifiable to suggest that there's going to be very little between these teams. I certainly wouldn't go against you if you said this was going to go to extra time or penalties. I've just got a feeling this might be settled in 90. I don't think we're going to see the most entertaining game in the world. I think we're going to see a 1-0. I'm going to go for Sunderland to edge it purely on a little bit of a hunch rather than any sort of logic. But I don't think the logic leads you particularly to one way either. So I'm going to go for Sunderland by 1-0. But genuinely, I'm not that confident in it. And I don't blame you if you go the other way. So there's my preview and score prediction for the EFL Championship Playoff Final. Who will be promoted and step up in a 24-25 season? I've gone for Sunderland to win 1-0, basically on the flip of a coin. This is such a tight game. Do any of you completely disagree? Let me know in the comments. Do you think this is going to be an entertaining game? Do you think it's going to be high scoring or very comfortable one way or the other? Get your score predictions in the comments below. Remember to mention if you think it's going to be after extra time or penalties. And if you beat or match my score, you'll get a little response and a well done from me as well. Of course, it is the final game and final prediction show of the championship season, but it is just the start of this weekend. If you want to stay up to date, then subscribe and turn that notification bell on, as we are back tomorrow to preview the EFL League 1 playoff final, and then the day after to do the same for League 2. We've also got the National League final next week, manager specials on the way as well. We only missed the Watford one while we were away last week. There's plenty more to come. If you enjoyed this one, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Of course, next season, you'll have a better chance to beat me because as a Luton fan, I won't be seeing quite as much of the championship, certainly not live anyway. But thank you very much for watching for now. Genuinely, good luck to both teams involved, and I hope you serve up a good match. We'll all be watching. I hope you enjoy it. And we'll see you again tomorrow to look ahead to the League 1 playoff final, featuring a certain former Luton manager.